It gives me great pleasure this evening to introduce Orest Tarnawsky and his wife Julia, who are here travelling around the country with us. Orest has done tertiary study in visual arts and education and had an early career as an art teacher and sculptor. Orest has a deep interest in ageless wisdom teachings, which led him to attain a Master's of Science in Esotericism through the University of the Seven Rays. Combined, these has developed Orest's passion for and skill in mentoring those on the quest towards awakening consciousness and in teaching the ageless wisdom through creative expression, study, and meditation. He has a particular interest in plasma, sound, electricity, and in the microcosmic and macrocosmic aspects. Orest's session this evening is going to be on synthesis and healing. So Orest, it's very lovely to have you, and over to you and welcome. Lovely to have you here.
Those people who are present and in this energy field from various parts of New Zealand and maybe elsewhere later, I also welcome you to this talk, this presentation. It's lovely that we are united because of our interests, united because of our open hearts. Thank you for also being here, my brothers and sisters. Esoteric healing, esoteric is in the idea of the inner, the part of you that has to do with all of your subtle bodies, your etheric body, your astral body, your mental body, your higher mental body, your Buddhic body, your atmic body, etc. I'm talking about Marcel Vogel, and Marcel Joseph Vogel was a scientist, and he worked for IBM, and he specialized in luminosity, and he also did a lot of patents for them. For example, when you look at a screen and you see the color crystals of that, he invented that. When you look at your hard drive and there's a coating on that, he made that coating, he invented that. He had 122 patents for IBM, and he did a lot of work with computers. And this is a Marcel Vogel crystal, which is like one of his first ones that he made. And this is a direct copy made by Lawrence Stoller. This is of the highest optical grade, and it was taken from Madagascar in 1930, and it would have been sent to the USA, and they would have used very small parts of this in computers. So the crystal in computers in the early days came from Madagascar and Brazil mainly, and this is of that high quality. And all crystals are wonderful. This crystal is a beautiful crystal also from Madagascar. But if you look at the difference in clarity, there's a little bit of clarity in the top of that. You'll see the difference. Marcel, when he was 4 or 5, had pneumonia extremely badly, and he was on the deathbed. As a good Catholic, he was given all of the sacraments at once. That happened to me in Ulm, Germany, because they thought I was going to die as well. So they give you baptism, confirmation, the Eucharist, and you also get extreme unction. And he apparently had an out-of-body experience. He came back from that, and he was perfectly healed. As a young person, he would walk a number of miles at 5:30 in the morning to go to Mass. And he would say to God, why have I been healed? What is my purpose? And he asked that question for 4 years. And in the 4th year, he was told that he would be a chemist and he would study luminescence. He went home and he got a chemistry set and he started working with that, and he actually started to look at the chemicals that make up luminescence, and he worked with phosphorus and various things. He was about 12 or 13 and he was in the library, and a professor from the university came into the library and said, I want to study luminescence. Can you tell me which books to get? And the librarian said, little boy over there, talk to him. The university professor and Marcel at that tender age wrote a book on luminescence that was published. Marcel eventually, under some circumstances, ended up working with crystals. I'll go into that a little bit further, but he moved from being a scientific scientist into becoming a mystical scientist. Okay, Stylianos Attichilis. Stylianos Attichilis was known as Daskalos. Daskalos is the name that was given to him by Kyriakos Mykidos. Kyriakos Mykidos was a sociology professor in America, but he was a Cyprus Cypriot by birth, and he would come to the islands. And one of the books he wrote was the Magus of Stravoli. And in this book, he talks about Daskalos, the teacher, and a group, which were the researchers for truth. Now, Stylianos Attichilis, by the time he was 14, 15, and by the time he reached 21, he had all of the memories and qualities and gifts and talents from his past incarnation. Not only that, he had a complete memory of his past incarnations, and the group of people around him also had a memory of their incarnations. He used this particular symbol, the symbol of life, and this symbol of life predates the Kabbalah. And the symbol of life, as you also know, goes back to Sumerian time. Okay? So Stylianos, not only did he speak Aramaic, ancient Greek, Sanskrit, Tibetan, he also was an Egyptologist. He could understand the hieroglyphs. And the book is in German, English, and hieroglyphs. And he spoke these as he matured to becoming a young man, without any training or anything like that. And people said to him, how come you have these gifts, these talents? And he said, because I have built them gradually by using this symbol, the symbol of life. And I'll give you a little bit more information on that a little bit later. Okay, the next slide, please. Thank you. This is the cosmic physical plane. And on that cosmic physical plane, you will have numerology for the 7 rays, you'll have the 7 levels, and you'll also have the senses coming down. You also have the chakras for the physical etheric, the astral, the mental, the pattern of triangles forming the egoic lotus, or the soul, which are the higher mental on the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd subplanes of the monastic plane. Then you have the spiritual triad, and you're moving up to the monad. You'll notice that they are centers of energy, and you'll notice there are pathways between them. So the Kabbalah is a similar sort of map to this. A ray is but a name for a particular force or type of energy with the emphasis upon the quality which that force exhibits and not upon the force aspect which it creates. This is a true definition of a ray. So you've got sensors, you've got centers, and you've got a path. Those centers are like chakras, like a vortex, right? Sentiency, quality of perception. I like this reciprocity. I like this, this twisting things around a little bit. So you can talk about the quality of perception, or you can talk about the perception of quality. Looking at it both ways. 7 rays, 7 levels, 7 qualities, centers of energies, chakras bridge, symbol of life, the Kabbalah, are versions of the cosmic physical plane. It's a form of energy mapping. And that energy mapping is part of you. And your life is to connect to all the parts of yourself, all of your chakras, and create those lines of energy as ways or bridges. And that you may use the term anti-Quran and various other terms, but basically you're creating threads of livingness to join from one center to another. Next one, please. Western Desert. The Western Desert Aboriginal artwork. And as I turned 77, I went to Australia to meet my twin sister. I then wanted to see my brother, but he had COVID, his wife had COVID, and the children had COVID. So I came to see my 2 children in Canberra a little bit early. And they couldn't pick me up from the plane. So the first thing I did was go to the National Art Gallery. And as soon as I went to the National Art Gallery, I went into the Aboriginal Centre. And there was this big gallery like this, just on the Western Desert. And there was a woman over there, and I was over there. And gradually we started walking and looking at each painting, meditating almost in front of each painting. And I don't know if you know much about optical illusions. When your eye gets tired or saturated with red, you'll see green, this sort of thing. Well, when you're looking at Aboriginal art, it starts to form a sort of a shift, a slight optical shift. And I have a feeling, I sense that is causing a certain pulsation. And that pulsation is carrying information. So these are song lines. They sing the oral tradition. They are chanting the ancestral heritage as they do this work. And each center has a certain significance. It might be something to do with an animal. It may have something to do with an ancestor. But in the same way that you have energy lines like that, you have energy lines which are on the earth. The earth is sounding. And according to Rory Duff, according to Jeff Hazelhurst, according to Miro Wolf, according to a few others, the sounding of the iron, nickel, solid part within a liquid frame is like a transducer, and it's creating the magnetism, but it's also sounding. And those sounding lines come up as grid lines, and these serpent lines, these ley lines, these dragon lines are forming on the earth, and they crisscross and meet, and you have chakras on the earth. And Mount Kailash is one such major chakra. There's the St. Michael's line. You also have the Mary line. So ley lines act the same way on earth as that does, as the chakras do. So everything from a universal point of view. So when you think of the planets, think of them being chakras within the solar system. Got what I'm saying? Right. And we have one sun, and that one sun is one of 7 suns, and that's part of one other being. All right? And it keeps going upwards and downwards to the minutest bit. Right. All All these images are symbols with multi-meaning, partially dependent on associated context. Essentially, they are energy vortices with lines of connectivity. These fields of energy also have intelligent organization. They are third ray, adaptive, intelligent, organized structure. And these are living forms. And we can connect with them, sense with them, and we are personally also transmitters and receivers of energy, as they are. And we are not separate. We are part of this matrix of energy. Next, please. This is In Search of the Southern Serpent, and this is in Castle Hill. And this is an energy spot in Castle Hill, which is on the same dragon line as Mount Kailash, which is on the same dragon line as Uluru and Katachuka in Australia. So this is a sacred energy spot. Julia and I went there with a small group, and we were there in one of the winter solstices, and we went there with a Waiataha Maori woman. And as we walked there at night, it was dark because the exact time was at, I think, 9:30, and she sang karakia to the rocks. Then she sang to the stars. And then we were there at the exact time in a circle. And we did a few little rituals and things happen. But it was like a Steiner dance. What do you call the Steiner dance? Eurythmics. We'd go in a Steiner dance and we'd be in a circle, and the lady would be saying a poem, and then we would do one movement, and it may be one of the alphabet, and then we'd dance to one side and then the other. And for a while there, you were struggling to get the idea. But after a certain time, you were drawn into a rhythm, and instead of being an individual doing it, you were part of a force, and the force was moving you around. And you had that feeling that you were in a vortex, and you were spinning in that. And you were still your unique, authentic self, but you felt that you were part of the whole, part of the circle. Incredible. That is another small, that's the Anu. And the Anu comes from occult chemistry, Annie Besant, Leadbeater. And we listened to a talk by a Indian...
Dr. Srinivasan from
Mumbai. And he was a specialist there, and he was giving the talk in Adelaide, and he looked at the back, and there was Annie Besant. And he said, Annie Besant, occult chemistry, and that's how I came to understand all the science that I've learned. So there's a connection there. But that is also seven spirili moving around, twisting in a vortex, and it holds the essential dynamic blueprint, whether you're talking about Itzhak Bentock stalking a wild pendulum and his ideas of a torus here and a torus here, two black holes, the central part, the heart, the energy moving around the vortex, the same principle. Right. Everything in the universe, this is Hamish, who is an English Taoist. Everything in the universe basically is energy. Every stone, tree, bush, plant, animal, bird, insect, grain of sand or microbe has an energy center. These centers are all joined by subtle connections to each other and to everything in existence. They radiate qualities, they imbibe qualities, relationships of Orest. I write. I think I wrote that. Now, this has what Stylianus would call elementals. But it has a sort of a intelligence. I see this as a friend. And when I become more acquainted with it and using it as a healing tool, my consciousness and its consciousness will work together. And I'll explain a bit about that as we go. All of these, whoops, sorry, I've got to stand. This lady here said I must stand on this and not kick it out of the way, otherwise they won't see me. Sorry, I moved. Right. Over there, you have a crystal, and this is glass, but it's obsidian, and it can take in toxicity. But after a certain time, it holds so much toxicity that you have to do something to get rid of it. And that I'll talk about later. But this is indigo garbo. And this is related to indigo garbo. And both of them are from Madagascar, very old part of the world. And the beautiful thing about both of these is they absorb toxic energy and they transform it. And somewhere in here, I have a whole range of biogeometry instruments, and I have a whole range of different pendulums. And these pendulums are set with certain areas. And this is the work of Ibrahim Karim, and Robert Gilbert is an approved teacher by Ibrahim Karim, and he talks about the quality of energies. And these particular devices are for measuring the qualities of these stones. Right, where am I? Next, please. Thank you. This is important. This is important. When a person or group of people establish a linkage with a center of energy, then a recognition of the energy charge happens and possible information is received. Then the center of energy also expands and creates a new expanded pattern. Qualities are shared. Did you get that? As you, I forgot to tell you. When I was in the art gallery, in heart math, they talk about the energy of the heart being 60 times greater than that of the mind, the brain. 60 times greater. And it's a normal person would have an energy field 12 feet. But if you've got a big heart, it may be 24 feet. Buddha's energy field was a number of kilometers. In fact, it may have been much more than that. So as we came across and came together, our energies met and we looked at each other and we looked at the work, and there was a certain recognition, there was a certain recollection, there was a certain reverence, there was a certain revelation. And we looked at it and she said to me, Orest, don't take a photo, put it on video, and the camera will pick up that pulse that you're talking about. And I don't know how to say it. She was a total stranger, and yet she was totally known. And she was part of me, and I was part of her. And there was an intimacy that was a bigger it was a profound connectivity. Then my son rang me and said, Orest, I'm in the truck waiting for you outside. And I had to come back to earth. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to get at. This sense that you first of all, there may be an impression, and that impression is like me as a teacher throwing information on the wall and a little bit of the mud sticks and the rest falls down. And I'm trying to tell my children art things, and a little bit goes here, and a little bit goes there, and a little bit sticks. But after a few impressions, you then start to make a contact. And as that contact deepens and you're making more contacts more easily, then in this way, you start to get an impact. So when you get used to this energy and the movement of energy, all of a sudden, something is happening. You are becoming the thing, and the thing is becoming you. Do you understand where I'm going? This idea was expressed by Hamish Miller, and his Dowser responses continually verified the statement. I've got to keep going quickly because...
I was wondering if you could tell us what a dowsing is.
Dowsing.
Briefly.
Dowsing is using rods, holding the rods, and the rods will move when you find a particular energy line. Some people do it with rods, some people do it even with just a pendulum, right? Marcel would work on a person's energy, then he would use the dowsing rods to test the energy, and the dowsing rods would move right out, showing the width of that energy. One of the things that was happening is this ley line was getting wider. Rory Duft has been examining ley lines for quite some time, and what he's saying that during the solstices and the equinoxes, the ley lines, the Mary or the masculine, the feminine, or the positive, the negative energy lines are getting wider, and they are lasting longer. So what's happening is the solar flares, the cosmic energy that's coming in is becoming greater and greater. Not only that, we as a sun and planets are moving into areas of space where the photon belt is much greater. So we're coming into more and more light. So how are you going to prepare your body so that you're opening to this increasing level of light, the increasing level of consciousness, the increasing expansion of wisdom, and a sense of knowingness, a sense of gnosis, yes. Does that do?
Perfect.
Right.
Thank you.
So this crystal, Marcel said, I've got this crystal, it's working, but how do I get this crystal to become much more? How do I get I didn't bring one, but how do I get a normal crystal? How do I get it to actually become much more useful, much more helpful? And he got a vision or an idea that he would cut it in the pattern of the tree of life. And there's one of his, and this is one, and it has a particular angle, and the angle of the smaller angle of 51.845 degrees is the same angle as Chope's pyramid. So there's sacred geometry involved in that. We'll keep moving. Oh, it can be 4-sided, 6-sided, 8-sided, or 12-sided. This is a 12-sided. This is an 8-sided. This citrine is a 6-sided. And I have one that's on the way to me now, which has been made specially for me, which is 6-sided. And this, I'll tell you why in a minute. Okay, next, please. Thank you. Tree of life, an ancient symbol of energetic flow from the universal to the personal. It's like the Tao, from the top down. That came to Marcel in a dream or vision as a form to cut the crystal, to transduce energy, to change energy from one to the other, and focus thought. The upper triangle, female, then represents the universal, which is the tree of life, is the point from which all emerges. The lower triangle represents the physical or personal manifestation, which is where the focus energies of the individual are cohered and focused. Now, this is the important word, coherence. So you have light that is dispersing, or you have light that's coherent. When it's coherent, you have laser light. Laser light, point of light like a laser, goes far. Now they've done the same with sound. It's called a Zaza, Cesar, right? So sound and light, and that Cesar will go beyond the speed of light. So the speed of light is not a limit. A master design. Now, why I say it's a master design, because once you look into Pythagoras, once you look into the Platonic solids, once you look into the flower of life and the tree of life, you are then talking about a particular geometry, system of geometry that is valid to the smallest nanoparticle, to the bigger particle, to the universe, to the universal universes or cosmos or whatever, wherever we go. So this crystal structure is in your bones, it's in your collagen. This crystal structure is part of your chakra system here as a maybe a many-dimensional, but let's keep it a 3 dimensions for a moment. A 3-dimensional thing that we are learning, and we are doing things with that. Marcel, crystals can store data just as water, because constructed on the same fractal core formula. Marcel Vogel crystals would resonate at 343, I think, hertz, and 343 is the same hertz for water, right? The 6-sided crystal is hexagonal, water is hexagonal, right? So when you're using that crystal, it's entering the structured water in your cells, which are almost like a gelified thing. And you've heard of Graham Pollock and his structured water? You've heard of Emoto and his ideas of structure with crystallines? Right, okay. Marcel is a pioneer in man-plant communications. I'll talk about that a little bit, which led him into research of the interface of consciousness with quartz crystals and water, which he researched for 17 years. So he really went into it. Now, look, I'm an art teacher. I know very little about science, as you've noticed, right? So I'm trying to understand it still, but I'll tell you a little bit more about it. The tree of life, as an aspect of the flower of life, is a blueprint of the organized structure of all life, both seen and unseen. So this includes not only our physical Earth and all of its parts, our solar system, our galaxy and universe, but also all of the cosmos. Next, please. Kabbalah teacher, modern mistress school, shares about how the DNA, the blueprint of life, relates to the tree of life and the Kabbalah. It also overlays on the flower of life. So down the bottom, you've got the flower of life design, and you've got the pattern there. And when you put that pattern together, you can construct all of the platonic solids within that, right? DNA, saccharin, and notice the serpent, which is relating to the vortex. Next, please. Cross-cut of a slice of DNA, and then think of Jung and think of mandalas. And then Shri Yantra, Om. Om. When you sound the Om in the correct tone, with the full fundamental sounds resonating in harmony, you're going from one low sound. And when you do it in a temple sometimes, with a beautiful voice like my wife, who's a good alto, you start to get fundamental notes, and then you start hearing other notes as if someone is singing with you. And then you're reaching up higher and higher, because as sound continues in its point towards infinity, it changes into color. So there's a correlation between sound and color and other things. Okay. They're the end of crystals. That's a rose window. Next, please. John Depew. Put up your left hand if you know. Oh, maybe you don't know your left from mine. I am typically strong. My wife says to me, go right, and I go left. But no, John Depew. Does anyone know John Depew? No. Have you heard of Coral Castle?
No, but that looks like it's been done with tatting.
With?
Tatting.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Ed Leaderskin was a Lithuanian, and he was able to get giant blocks of coral weighing tons. And he was able to levitate them and build a completely big structure. And people wondered how he did it. And John Depew has investigated him, and he has basically stated that magnetism is like a fundamental. Now, I don't think anything is by itself the core. I think everything has a correlation. So I think magnetism, dielectricity, electricity, sound, color, all of these work in a correlation with each other to do something. So classification is separating things in different parts. I think that has to be thrown out the window, and we have to start using the word synthesis. So I tend not to say just that. Clay Taylor is, if you want to understand magnetism, if you want to understand color, if you want to understand sound, if you want to understand music and harmonics, if you want to understand light, the art of Clay Taylor. Brilliant, brilliant. I gave a talk on color, and I came home and I found Clay Taylor, and I thought, what a lot of rubbish I was talking. I was talking about Goethe and his work, and I had all the little triangles in his books, but I was only touching the fringes. Clay Taylor. Next, please, because time is of the essence. Electric conductivity causes an excellent electrical insulator, which means it does not conduct electricity well, and yet it has piezoelectricity. You've heard of piezoelectricity. Piezoelectricity is a form of dielectric energy. I believe it's plasma, and I believe it's a fourth etheric. So it generates a type of electrical charge when it is subjected to mechanical stress or pressure. Now, when you think of India, and you think of the granite mountains, and you think of all the tiny little crystals in that one piece of granite, and then you think of the heat of the earth, the cooling and the stress, and then you have the movement, mechanical movement, and that releases energy, and that energy goes into the ley lines and the movement of energy, and that energy goes to plants. And if you know Saxon Burr's work, he examined this electrical energy and how it's around all trees, right? And he would check to see using his electrical voltage meter, whether a woman was ready, and then she would say, "You're ready, get your husband quickly, you're about to conceive." "Oh, right, doctor, what's this? Yeah, you're going to have a baby, so you're going to start that process." And they had a child, right? I'm sorry, but this is
like Rupert Sheldrake's son. He's a scientist. He talked about the world. He called it the wood wide web.
Yeah.
All the trees are all roots, all connected.
fungi, microbiome. Yes, and the same thing's happening inside you. Your microbiome inside of you, you have millions of little funny fungi and parasites and bacteria and viruses, and they are in here, inside you. And you are a universe in yourself. And do you talk to your little microbiome? Oh, very good, very good. Excellent. So get to know yourself, get to know what's part of you, because all of that is part of you.
I feed them well.
I think you feed them very well.
Yes.
Oh, go back one.
Oh.
One of the most amazing properties of quartz is the ability of its crystals to vibrate at a precise frequency. Sound is the formative power that results in manifestation. Kashmir and Shaivism? No one here, Kashmir and Shaivism?
I've heard.
Taimni. Taimni?
Timely, yes.
Timely.
IK timely.
Kashmir Shaivis, right? Now, sound is the beginning, not live, sound. In the beginning was the word. The word, right? Crystals are much more than what we are aware of. They're not simply stones, but they are living beings. They have a very specific and regular geometric structure formed and grown over millions of years. As the first kingdom to exist, it is said they anchored the light on earth through their structure for all the other kingdoms to follow. And you are made up of lots of little crystals too, liquid crystals and actual crystals. Next, please. Marcel, the crystal is a neutral object whose inner structure exhibits a state of perfection and balance when it is cut to the proper form, and when the human mind enters into relationship with its structural perfection, the crystal emits a vibration which extends and amplifies the power of the user's mind. Like a laser, it radiates energy in a coherent, highly concentrated form, and this energy may be transmitted into objects or people at will. You may demonstrate this power by conscious effort and intent to heal. This he did. And if you go on marcelvogel.com, you can look at 20 of his therapeutic healing videos in Denmark, 20 in Germany, and some in, and you could also look at some of his notations. Next, please. Breath. Breath. In-breath. Raising. Oh, sinking, moving out, holding the breath, harigiri, talking from here, from the diagram, right? John, put that down. John, stop throwing that rotten fruit about. Come, get it. So you're talking and you're projecting, and you lift from John to stop him from throwing it, and then you start talking from your heart. And then you're using your throat, but you're using your eyes and you're directing. And he looks and says, "Oh, he's caught me again, the bastard." Right, I was a teacher, as you probably noticed. Right, breath. Breath carries memories and thoughts. It also carries the energy of a being. It carries my energy, it carries your energy, right? The energy, not only encoding of its vehicle DNA, but as well encoding of the soul. Basis of Marcel's healing crystal method was breath, the rhythmic breathing cycle, the inhalation, the exhalation, the pauses in between. When you project breath in a small sneeze, you also project by superimposing a parcel of the soul and being. And with this, there is an intention. So you're using the energy of intention, the energy of breath, right? So will is there, will, intention. Prana chi carries thought feeling, hence a fragment of one's consciousness. The energy force that is a living manifestation of source is being impregnated into the crystal. Your energy is put into this. And this crystal, particularly this crystal, now, this crystal has been made by Drew Towesley. And Drew Towesley was taught by Marcel Vogel Sr. and Marcel Vogel Jr., his son. And he's one of the very few, in fact, he may now be the only person alive who works to the criteria that Marcel Vogel said for making this crystal. So people have used the Vogel crystal and they have tested it, and energetically, clairvoyantly, it hasn't got the power or the energy. It can still be used, it's still used to a certain extent, but this particular crystal is like, it's the difference between a small torch with a little bit of voltage and a laser light with a lot of power. So there are certain criteria for this and the making of this. So this is a very special crystal. And later I'll be doing work with healing in the Christchurch Lodge. And we'll be starting a healing group, and we'll be working with crystals, and we'll be working with precious stones and things. But these crystals, this is called a microcrystal, and Stylianus would say Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Oriel, and the divine. Oh, I must stand. Okay, right. And in front is the Divine Mother, the nurturing one, the one that sustains all manifestation. So this is a very special, this is also called a Vogel crystal, and this is a very special Vogel crystal, and if you look at it carefully, you'll see the Star of David, and it's in amethyst, in clear amethyst. So they are specialized tools that are used in healing work. Okay. Energy. Oh, breath is a carrier wave. Breath is a carrier wave. Now, this is part of a meditation by Dwal Kul. Now, let me say something. I nearly fell off my chair when I realized that Marcel Vogel had read all of the Alice Bailey books and studied them diligently. And like me, he had a little bit of trouble reading Cosmic Fire and reading Esoteric Healing. And in meditation, he said to the Master Dwal Kul, I'm going to throw all of these books, blue books, into the fire. I can't make heads or tail of it. And what happened was he reached a stage where he had what's called continuity of consciousness. Do you know what continuity of consciousness is? Viola Petit-Neal, Through the Curtain?
Yeah, I read that one.
Right. Viola Petit-Neal had an ability to be consciously awake as she transitioned from one state to another. So when she went to sleep, she didn't go to sleep, she just shifted from one consciousness to the other. So she could move from the physical life to the physical etheric, to the astral, to the higher mental, to the Buddhic plane. And there she would go into, this is Viola, she would go into night classes. And in the night classes, the masters of wisdom would teach her. And they would make a hologram as big as a meter by a meter by a meter by a meter by whatever. And that would be of a brain. And they would put something in. And they would have a whole range of people there who are biologists and scientists who are working on ways of healing things. She was there and she could remember everything. But when she came back, the people who were with her that she knew in the hospital, they had no memory of it. So she was like an in-between trying to tell them. Marcel eventually got that ability to go and learn with the masters. And this is why I'm a Baileyite, but I've also studied the secret doctrine. In fact, I should tell you in a minute. Okay. So this is part of the meditation. Inhale deeply, drawing the breath up from the solar plexus in the spine, seeing that upward moving breath, carrying the solar plexus energy up into the head and passing it through the heart. Believe that this takes place. That basically I'm saying in meditation, this is what you're doing. You're carrying the energy up, using your breath. Okay? So breathing in meditation is very important. And Marcel in his work he was able to hold his breath for 5 minutes. So he would do various things in that time onwards. Because time is, and you've said 1 hour. Tell me when I have to stop.
It's 8 o'clock now.
Oh, that means I have to stop.
No, you can carry on.
I can carry on. All right. This one is the point where you press, and this is the lace. Next.
You don't have to do too fast.
The frequency of love is the connecting pulse between all living things in the universe. Hold love as healing proceeds. Dissonance cannot attune with an ordered state of geometrical resonance. Harmonic sound made visible results of the Platonic solids. These exact forms allow intensity of flow, hue, tone, ratio, quality. The projected amplified crystal energy enters the zone of dissonance, disease, or the knot. The command release withdraws the distorted field and its tangled energy. We seal the energy with love. The phase conjunct node that creates the vortex singularity within the eye of crystal is significant. The six-sided crystal follows the natural hexagonal form. If you want to understand phase conjunction, the work of Dan Winter, right? But also read the work of Taimni. I say Taimni, what do you say?
Taimni.
Right, and what he has is a thing like that, and he has a vortex coming in here and a vortex coming in here, and there's energy coming both ways through, right? And that's like a vortex coming into infinity, right? And the crystal end like that is like that vortex, and you're coming into that and reducing down. And that's a phase conjunction. When you have one here and one here, you have a point, and the heart is like one of those points. So if you've read Franklin Merrill, anyway, he talks about a vortex coming from here, vortex going there from the heart, vortex going that way, vortex going that way, and a vortex going that way. So you've got all those vortexes moving and coming into the heart. And that's where we have to work from the heart. Next, please. The basic concept. This is Viola Petitnil through the curtain. Remember the basic concept given in a lecture that when life or spirit moves outward from a center, it is energy. And when energy moves inward to a center or vortex, it becomes matter. Matter is a pattern rather than a solid, a pattern of energy moving into a center. As long as the pattern is manifested, we have the so-called solid matter. Sound may be considered as having a positive charge, geometrical forms as having a negative charge. These two have a polarity aspect together which give rise to color. Crystals are the key to this polarity relationship because they are exact geometrical forms. And what we are building is geometrical forms and not distorted forms. And we'll talk about that in a second. Right. Go. I've talked about that. Go. Blazilski. Andrew Blazilski from Lvov, the town of my ancestors. He was a Jesuit priest. He was a Polish person. He studied physics and became conversant with all of the relativity in quantum mechanics. He wrote an article, The Music of Crystals, Plants and Human Beings, built on the work of Bose, the Indian Bose, Jagadish Chandra. Did you hear that? That's the correct pronunciation. And Bose, Alexander Gerwish, they work with luminescence in onions through crystal vessels, not glass beakers. And of course, you go on to Pop and you go on to Rife. Rife would have had all of his lenses made of crystal, not of glass. It explores the role of sound and musical harmonics in the development and form of crystals, plants, and animals. So he's looking at crystals in relationship to that. He states all crystals are tuning fork. Andrew drew on the work of Hans Kaiser, who drew on the works of Kepler. The textbook of harmonics by Hans Kaiser is the best book that I know that I've ever come across. And there are 2 volumes, and I think you'd need probably half a lifetime to try to understand them. But I've got the 2 books so that we'll have them in our schools so they're available to others. Right. Oh, if anyone's got a USB stick, then you can download this. And then as she downloads this, if you want a copy of all of this, you can get a copy from Sushumna.
Sushma.
I'm
not one of the daddies.
Right. Okay. Next, please. Sorry.
I have one of them, but I'm not it.
A slip of the tongue.
It's all right, no problem.
Press the button. Each circle indicates a convergence of lines of energy, to an infinite point. Each circle is a center of the motion we call spiral. So you have rotary motion, you have spiral cyclic motion, and you've got forward moving motion. This is a torus or a chakra, a vibration field. Motion can receive and transmit information. This applies to a Vogel crystal, and it applies to the Vogel crystal standing over you, and you have the ability to link up with all those chakras within yourself. Next, please. Next, please. Very, very quickly, they're the 3 rays, and they're the qualities, and they're the aspects of the rays. Next, please. From this whole health domain, we tend to focus attention on a small area. We tend to focus on appearances. We tend to focus on form. But do we focus on qualities? So if you click back one, what I'm trying to say is you have to focus on the life factor, the being, the consciousness. You have to focus on wisdom, not just matter. You have to have adaptive intelligence, but you also have to focus on love. So you have to include all of those as part of the expression of your livingness as a being, as a person, as a full person.
In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about Buddha yoga, combination of Karma yoga, Bhakti yoga, Jnana yoga, and meditation.
Yeah.
Integration.
Integration. Next, please. Next, please. Marcel discovered the greatest cohering agent is love. That'll do. Next, please. Next, please. Russian artist Nicholas Roerich, the below painting of a cave of quartz crystal is titled Most Sacred. You can see the masters in the cave in the yellow. And Viola talks of the cavern of remembrance, the place of recollection. And she talks about, again, the crystal cavern. So in that presence of those crystals, you are coming into relationship with the information that they bestow upon you. Next, please. This is becoming important in case in case you are half asleep. Now is the time to wake up, okay? Right. Energy follows our attention, be it conscious, be it reactive. True health centers on two primary functions: development of consciousness, development of energy. So you have to work with your energy self. You have to be conscious while you're working with that energy self, because every thought we ever had, every emotion we ever generate, which can be completely reactive in a reactive mind, or something we consciously create or generate, every one of these structures our subtle bodies into a particular form. We are responsible for this creative expression, be it a useful, healthy form or a distorted form. Oh, let that sink in. You are the one that sows the seed. You are the one who nurtures the plant. You are the one who reaps what you have sown. Next. We are actually forming, quite literally, subtle geometric structures in our own energy bodies, and that is the only thing that you take with you through the gates of death. And those subtle geometry structures hold the qualities that you have cultivated. And they're the qualities that Stylianus brought back in his next incarnation. And when you turn to be about 21, right, you are then at that stage where you were in your last incarnation. You have blossomed out your physical etheric, you've blossomed out in the next 7 years, your astral self, and the next 7 years, you are starting to blossom out to your mental capacity in your past life. Are you 21 yet? Ah, right. So you're reaching 28 and you're starting to get to be who you really are. And now you have to start growing and developing. Whoops. You have to start growing and developing from there. Okay.
I'm glad I put that there.
Right. After death reality. After death reality depends on these self-built subtle bodies. Your state of consciousness in the afterlife is also based on your present held realities. So if you think you're going to die and you're going to be welcomed in some flowery clear light, you will be for a short time, but the light will be so bloody, sorry. The light will be so bright and so damaging that you'll say, no, take me back to where I'm blind. Right. And you'll go back to that level of reality that you're in now. And you are creating your afterlife now. That is what you do. That is why you're here. Okay, got it? Right. The observer, witness, watcher role is needed here and now. What motives are impelling you to action in your personality life, in your group relation, in your service to humanity? Beauty of form embraces the higher energies of sentiency, right? Comprehension is right up there as a sentiency, and you comprehend the whole. You start to feel the whole. You start to synthesize. You're starting to pull things together. And you know something. And when you meet another person, you don't look at them and say, oh, she's Indian. I only talk to white people. You look at her and you see her eyes and you see part of her soul and you see her beauty. And when she talks, and she's a bit bossy sometimes, you ignore the fact that she's a bit bossy and authoritarian. You just know that in her heart, she means well. She actually loves me. And yeah, there are little few things there that may irritate me, but I'm not allowing them to trigger me. I am saying, shush, mate, I love you. Okay, next. Right. So crystals and chakras hold the pattern we program with our thoughts, emotions, action, our intentions, our sound, our feelings, the reaction or conscious choice. Do we react when we're triggered, or do we pause and stop and make a conscious choice? Alert awareness in the present moment is needed, and refinement and perfecting structure creates health. This relates to our subtle bodies which record, radiate, and adjust. So the patterns within our etheric body influence our thought, emotions, and action. There's a reciprocity between them. Next, please. Next, please. Crystal. Next, please. Crystal said. Next, please. A little known Indian professor of physics named Jagadish, say it again.
Jagdish Chandra Bose.
Jagdish Chandra Bose started to investigate Hertzian waves. He developed and so forth. J.C. Bose was at least 60 years ahead of his time. Next, please. I study in consciousness. Each particle, whether you call it organic or inorganic, is life. If there is life, there must be a sentiency or stimulus. Mr. Bose, the scientist, he definitely proved that in inorganic matter, there is a response to stimulus. Next, please. Study in Consciousness by Annie Besant was purchased from Adja Bookshop in Sydney in September 1965. 58 years later, I speak of consciousness. In India, this marble sculpture of Annie Besant engaged my focused attention. It drew me into rapport, demonstrating a strong power that filled my being. The significance of the power of this person embedded in marble was being released. The crystals of which the marble are formed under thermomechanical compression gave off piezoelectric energy, which conveyed both sound and structured information. These energies may impact the sensitive receiver. This was my experience. We were in the Adja Museum with a German curator, and it was Julia, myself, and the curator. And he was lifting off covers and showing us things for 3 hours. And I walked past this sculpture and I stopped, and they moved on, and I stepped forward. And I came back and I touched the sculpture and I tried to move away and I felt something. I was drawn to it. Now I'm also a carver. My father was a carver. My son is a carver. Carver of stone, carver of marble, carver of wood. So I have a feeling for marble, and I appreciated this as a sculpture, but more than that, I was touched by the energy embedded in it. And this is what I mean by getting to something and getting into a rapport with it and allowing yourself to open in silence, to open in gratitude, to open in respect and reverence to that which is taking place. And that is a moving, intense wonderment. It's beautiful. Next one, please. There is memory stored in everything, in tiny bone structures. That's a microscopic thing, and those little white things are crystals in bones. There is a memory stored in the land, in country, in place. This is an Aboriginal from the Kimberley region talking. Bone is mostly made up of mineral crystals and protein collagen. Marcel Vogel said, bones record, crystals record. Dust psychometry, as done by Jeffrey Hodgson, depend on the library of quality of crystals, the data that's held by the crystals within the form. And he could feel that and relate to that. And then it spoke to him. It gave him images. It gave him data. I was in a conference in Adelaide with an astrologer, Malcolm Hartley, and he held a bit of radioactive copper crystalline formation from Akarula in the central Australia, maybe in the top of South Australia, moving into central Australia. And he held it at the conference, and a friend of his who was clairvoyant held it and said, that is like a series of CDs holding the record of Australian history over millions of years, right? This is what I'm talking about. Crystals having this ability. And the highest state that a crystal, the highest initiation that a crystal has is when it becomes radioactive. The highest state for a plant life is when it gives off its perfume, right? It's essential oils. Next, please. I'll let you read that later. Next, please. Next, please. Next, please. Clive Baxter worked with, he was a CIA agent, and he had a plan, and he put a clip on it, and he recorded, he had the idea that he was going to light a cigarette lighter and burn the plan. As soon as he did it, the recording machine went mad, right? So the recording machine responded to his thought. Animals can respond to your thought. Crystals can respond to your thought. Okay, that's what I'm trying to get there. Next, please. Marcel was able to do that. And once he did that, that changed his life. Next, please. So Marcel said the squiggle on the script chart recorder changed his life. This was the beginning of Marcel's transformation from a purely rational scientist becoming mystical scientist. Next, please. There's Marcel, a beautiful person, a wonderful, wonderful human being. Next, please. There are actual energy patterns behind everything in physical manifestation, because to manifest something into physical reality, you first have to create a particular pattern in energy. And that becomes a blueprint through which the crystallization, the precipitation process of that energy pattern into physical matter will actually happen. Next, please. When it loses the core pattern, that's when illness sets in. If you can restore the core pattern, then you have what we think of as a healthy health, because that's proper functioning. Any distortion in the pattern creates problems. For whatever the system is, the pattern doesn't hold its particular integrity. Coherence, attraction, unity, harmony, health. Disease, repulsion, separation, dissonance. Next. To be healthy, focus attention, your thoughts and feelings on study, service, and meditation. And the highest of that is service. The highest of that is service. The little I have known, I've tried to share. I was taught Aikido. I didn't have a black belt. I was somewhere in between, and I left the area. I was in a country school, and I started an Aikido club. And we would get the top instructors to fly in. We'd pay for him to come to us, and we'd have a 3-day intensive teaching. So pass on the little that you know in service, and also value every experience as an opportunity to grow. Every experience out there, people, every experience, right? Every single experience is an opportunity for you to blossom, to reach your full potential, to become your authentic self. So don't just grin and bear it, enjoy it. Next, please. These are some of the people I talk about, and these are some of the people that have influenced me. And for example, if I was to say Chalko. Chalko is a Polish person who specialized in calligraphy. He went to the Melbourne University, and he started the department on holograms there, making them, etc., etc., etc. He was a mystic. And in his meditation with 3 other people, he meditated with 3 people in different parts of the world. And he meditated on healing a friend whose knee was in a terrible way. And they focused on their knee as a healthy knee. They worked it, they articulated the knee, then they sent the pattern of their healthy knee to this person. And that person was healed. Right? So the power of meditation and healing. And this happens when you meditate in a group as well. I could talk about each one of those, but I'm not. Oh, pranic healing, Cho Kok Su, another area of healing that's very, very important. Okay, keep going, nearly there. Oh, we'll leave that for the time being. Next. They're the three threads. The thread, the life thread to the heart, the consciousness thread, and then there's the creative thread. And it's the creative thread that you are working with. And you're using the other two threads to create. You are co-creating the universe. You are co-creating this country. You are co-creating this earth. You are co-creating this solar system. You are doing it, and we are doing it together with how we think and how we feel and how we go inside ourselves, and we open to intuition, we open to telepathy, we open to our sense of knowingness, we touch our soul and our soul touches us. We work with the angels. Next, please. These three people are important, and their work is now coming to fruition. People are starting to understand what's happening there. Just in a short while in September, Nassim Haramein will be giving a talk on a unified theory, which anyone who is keen on science would do well to watch. Next, please. Are we drinking from the Aquarian waters of life? Are you consciously creating in full awareness of the quality of your thoughts, feelings, and action? Have you begun to feel the inner energies flowing through you, flowing with life, flowing with vitality, flowing with love? Next, please. The earth and humanity will be healed as we begin to love and radiate our true self. Gratitude to the angel kingdoms, to Michael, Raphael, Gabriel, Uriel. Gratitude to the Trans-Himalayan wisdom tradition, to the masters and disciples and teachers of Theosophy, the Arcane School. Thank you to my teachers. I'm that little frog in the flower. That's the master Patumi. Thank you for listening so well. Thank you for being. My pleasure to be here. Finished.
Thank you, Orest. Fantastic. So we'll have some questions or comments from the lodge, and then we'll look at online. Phil.
Well, thank you, Orest. That was a massive contribution, and so much to take in, and it actually repeats, or in a minor way, in myself, areas that I've looked into. But the idea came to me while you were talking, that I read somewhere that in the pineal gland there is a sort of crystalline structure, and I feel the way technology is going, it's only a matter of time before some devices develop which will activate that, by stimulating the crystalline potentiality.
I agree, and from my understanding, fluoride in the water causes that to distort or do things. So somehow, I think energetically with intention, one of the things that's a great power is invocation. And as you invoke and ask for clearing and release, it will come. So there's openness, there is a sense of trust, there's gratitude, but there's also invoking the soul and building through meditation a connection to the spiritual triad. And gradually, I am asking for the removal of all hindrances to the free flow of this energy. As you do that, you're going to start activating the heart chakra. He talks about a thymus chakra, which is developing, which helps the immune system to counter things. You start working from the throat chakra to the ultra major chakra. And as that ultra major, ajna and crown start to work together, then you start connecting more to your soul. But somehow in meditation, as you invoke, as you ask, you will get a response, and slowly you will straighten out the kinks in your system.
And detoxification is a big thing at the moment as well. So all these things seem to be coming together at this particular time in history.
And working with all the kingdoms will help that. And having a sense of gratitude for the abundance that's in your life already, and the beauty that you've experienced.
Great.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, great.
One of the early slides talked about the individual or the group getting together and creating a centre of power. Am I getting that right?
In a sense, when you focus on an energy center, Julia's mother was a theosophist, and Shirley was there with her. And Shirley McPherson worked with Geoffrey Hodgson on one of the books on angels, demon kingdom. Anyway, they got together and meditated on one part of Adelaide where there was a lot of crime, which was the fountain. So a group of them, small group of them, just meditated together and sent energy to that fountain centre. And the crime rate and the difficulties in that started to dissipate. So when you focus energy on something, particularly as, how can I say it, when we meditate, I link with you heart to heart. I link with you ajna to ajna, crown to crown. I don't link with you through my solar plexus, because they're my little agitations and fears. But as we link and start forming a triad, then we make 5, and then we make 12. There's a power in that 12. And as you focus your energies in a spirit of coherence together, and there's no dissonance, there's no criticism, there's harmlessness, there's no jealousy or all of that, then you have this beautiful energy that is very, very potent and can do a great deal of work. So that's what I'm saying. But if you focus on your tomato plant, your tomato plant will respond. But if a group of you focus on the orchard, the whole orchard will start to respond. So when was the last time you talked to a tree? Well, you know what I mean? I remember Albert Schweitzer. He was on his way back to the Congo, and he used to play the organ to get a bit of money. And he was at the railway station, and he looked and he saw a woman, and she seemed a little distressed. And he came over and just sat next to her and said, "Are you okay? Can I help you at all?" And they got talking. Anyway, he got on the train, and the woman sat there, and she wrote a letter. And the letter was for the newspaper, and it said, "My intention was to jump into the front of the train as it first pulled in." And this man just felt my dismay, my sorrow, and he made an effort to communicate with me. And this is this energy, and it changed. It caused a shift in her. She felt the connection. She felt the energy of love. Okay. Well, I'm not sure. Did I?
That's great, yeah, because like for our building, you know, we've had many people here at the lodge over the years, many theosophists and that, and the energy here is quite nice because we've had 100 years of focused esoteric activity for the one. And so, yeah.
Not only that, in this area, there is an etheric. The etheric is here, the astral is here, the mental is here, the Buddhic is here. There are beings here. They've been listening to me and saying, Orest, you could fix this point up when you talk in the next place. And that's already happened to me, right? But should I say something about that?
Yeah, go.
At the meeting in Wanganoo, Michelangelo Palmerston North. He's an artist, and Julia had asked him to bring some of his work in. And he brought in a painting. And the painting was of the Hutt River, Lower Hutt, a river, a stream there, and it had trees there. And this, it was abstracted, but somehow this Maori man had a difficult childhood, and he had walked the stream, wagging school, and he would link with the trees. And the trees in the painting have got like shards of crystals, almost coloured and luminescence in them. And it's got his hands moving through. So there's this big, long, snaky thread moving through the forest and the trees, and his hands showing. It's almost like his consciousness in himself has embraced the thing. So he is not thinking of something as an idea. He was living it. He was living in communion with nature. It was part of his interactivity. And as he gave his inner self into the tree responded. And the plants responded. And the sky responds. So we really are part of all things. Okay.
Thank you.
Anything?
There are no questions, just lots of them saying thank you for your presentation.
Right.
Does anyone have any question online? Please unmute yourself
Hang on, Clive.
and ask the question. After Clive.
Okay.
Thank you, Orest, for really as Bill said, a lot of information and a lot of energy, and for reminding us how we're all interconnected. I have one specific question about crystals. Are they best created in those certain shapes? Like I've got an amethyst crystal that I've had for a very long time. It's about the size of gold or a little bit bigger. It's got some sharp edges and things, but I often like to just hold it in my hand. Get interaction with you.
What is significant is not the crystal. Whether it's this crystal or this crystal or this crystal or a stone, right? I've got a stone that I picked up when I was in Ramana Maharishi's ashram. And it's an ugly little stone, but it's got the ashram of the mountain in it. It's got the energy of the mountain in it. And if you look at Oscar Brunner was able to feel the energy of a stone, and he would tell you where it came from because of its energy. So what you are doing is forming a relationship with the stone and you're putting your consciousness into it, and it is drawing energy from the universe and sending you energy. And the important thing is not the stone. It's like the story of a monk who was coming back from the Holy Land and from China, and he remembered that he promised to give his mother a relic, and he saw a skull of a dog, and he took a tooth out and he wrapped it in silk, and he told her that it was a relic from Buddha or one of his disciples, and the mother revered the idea behind it, and that sustained her. And that was the important thing. So to me, it's the intensity of your communication where it becomes, you are healing the stone and the stone is healing you, and you're in rapport with it, and that's the beauty of it. Now, over time, you may work with something like this, and you may be able to get a much greater effect, because this has got a higher potential inherent to it, but you still get an effect from the smallest, or the not so good or not so perfect, etc. I believe that the Platonic shapes are very, very important, and I believe the Star of David is very important as a shape that it becomes. Right, but this has got a lot of power, but a piece of amethyst that's just an amethyst crystal that you picked up while you were in Africa or something, it has the power.
Oh, thank you also for your comments about breath and sound.
Yes.
Singing.
Yeah, I've given talks on electricity and on sound in the past, so I know a lot about cymatics and simoscope and various other things, but this is more just to link with this. Okay.
Yeah, we'll just take one comment from online. Is anyone online wanting to say anything?
Hello, Orest. Thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I'll just put my camera on. And do you see this?
Yes.
So when I first got this crystal, it gave me a headache.
Yes.
And so the couple that gave it to me were breaking up at the time. And it did give me some intense migraines for a few months. So I used to keep it covered with a piece of cloth. And I did meditate on it a long time ago, and then the headache stopped. Can you talk a little bit about the energies of crystals and if they can affect our brain waves and health in general?
A crystal by itself is neutral, but the crystal may have the energy of the people who had it. The crystal may have the energy of the place. In the place where the crystal came, there was hard work cutting the crystal out. And one of my friends said to me, give your new crystals a chance to heal from the process of the making of them. And there is a particular sound, and that sound is 4,096 hertz. And 4,096 hertz, exact, not close, exact, is a clearing. And what that does is clear any negativity, any imbalances, and it restores the harmony in the crystal. So what I would have done is use a silk cloth, because silk is able to take out dielectric energy, and this could act as almost like a shield to deflect the energy that's coming to you. So I cover these at night because otherwise I have too much activity happening in my sleep. So the use of a silk cross, but the main thing is clearing a crystal. So this is a
Obsidian.
obsidian. Oh, sorry.
Mm.
This is an obsidian, and the obsidian clears toxicity. So you can use that, but you have to put your intention in this. You have to say, obsidian elementals, helpful elementals, I want you to clear the energy in this amethyst. I ask that the Devic life help you in that, and it can absorb a lot of that energy. But if this becomes full of toxic energy, it then needs the cleaning. And that's where there is a device that's coming on the market very soon, which is an electronic device, and it will sound the frequency of 4096 not exactly, but to 0.001 something of exactness, where you can buy a tuning fork, but it's out by 10 or 15. It's not going to be as effective. But the main thing that clears something is your intention. So you have to intend. So you say, I clear the energy of this crystal. The crystal is now cleared. Thank you, Devic friends of mine. And it's clear. So it's your intention. Okay? Right. Does
So much.
that help?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else? I think it's, I'll give a big thanks to Orest. It's fantastic. You're sharing your energy and experience. I know it's been really good. I haven't seen you for many years, Julia. So thank you very much. Much appreciated from all of us here in the lodge and online.
Pleasure. Pleasure.